This is stuff.
WindowsFX.
Get the list ready.
Yeah, it's a doozy.
And good evening. My transition there was a little bit slow, so there we go. Welcome to another BDLL Live. We're set out to have a talk about tech around the virtual water cooler. Anything that is Linux, tech, open source related is on the table for discussion. Do have some things in the docket. But first, I want to thank Rocco for starting the BDLL community, where I truly felt like a member of the nicest group of encouraging and uplifting people, of phenomenal skills and abilities, and a whole range of levels. Because this is the place I go when I have questions like that I need answered right away. So good evening, everybody. How are you today?
Good.
Excellent.
Good.
Excellent.
Maybe later you can answer a Telegram question for me.
I don't necessarily have the answers. I go there to get answers for myself, just to be clear. So what have y'all been doing on in the Linux world or tech world? Anything exciting? Anything earth-shattering? No?
Nothing
Just playing
earth-shattering.
with the FX windows.
Yeah.
I create a USB key that's encrypted using Ubuntu, because
Nice.
Ubuntu does the whole Lux thing, but for the whole thing, I think Ubuntu only does anything that's not the boot. So I use that key in case I want to do banking or something like that,
Oh, okay. Very
and just keep it aside, and that way I don't have to worry about anything with my system, since I just boot from it and then get
That's
out
cool.
of it when I'm done.
Now that's running, you said, Ubuntu?
Yeah, because it uses the Calamares installer, and the Calamares installer has that capability of doing a full encryption.
That's cool. I've never done anything like that. So is that something that you would do like on your main system, or like if you used a foreign system, that's when you would use it?
Well, you could use it in your main system, or you can just make sure you don't put like the proprietary drivers. You use the open source ones. I think you can just transfer from any computer.
Okay. Is this something you're going to use
idea.
on the regular, or is it kind of just a tool to have?
Yeah, just when I do something like banking or something, so I don't have to think about everything I install. Sometimes you always wonder, well, what's in that install? Did I check it? I don't know.
Right.
So this
I
way,
gotcha.
it's more safe that way.
Now, you chose that?
Sounds like Aris did it because he can.
Right. So I'm curious, why did you choose that method as opposed to just using some other, an off-the-shelf option?
I mean, ideally you would use a different computer, but I don't have a separate computer to do it on. I do have one, but it's always in use, so I'd rather have this, and that way I can be sure that the system is not compromised.
Right. Well, the way I see it, I have to use for my banking, I have to use an app on my phone for a security code to be able to log out of my computer. So if I have to have that on my phone, that there's nothing that my computer could do that would be worse than what my phone is already doing. So the way I see it, I'm kind of I'm up a creek no matter what.
Yeah, phone bad, computer with Linux okay.
And sometimes like banks and other services, they don't give you a second option for logging in, like a two-factor authentication. You
know what my bank does? If my bank don't recognize my computer from the last time I logged in, they put on a screen where they actually phone you directly. They don't text message you. An automated phone service comes on, and they slowly give you 6 digits for a number to put in this box on the screen to authenticate you.
That's wild.
Or else you're not getting on. But they don't do it every time. Like if I jump from, let's say, Firefox to Vivaldi, they don't recognize that. So that's an immediate phone call from the bank.
Right. It's probably some sort of a cookie
code
or something they put on the on your computer.
Right.
Well, very cool. So as far as Linuxy stuff goes for me, I've been mostly playing with more of the Home Assistant. I installed some more switches in my house so I can turn lights off. Actually, my favorite thing to do is like, oh, lights are on. I'm going to turn them off. That's my favorite thing to do. But Dad, I'm trying to read. No, lights are off. I'm kidding. I'm not that crazy, and I don't have enough. I don't have enough switches to be able to turn everybody off. So, what I did do though is I have enough dimmer switches I ordered that are on the way. They're a little bit more troublesome to program, but I have a good I got a good system now. But the switches that I wanted, like just regular toggle on-off switches, those were I couldn't buy those at the price I wanted. So I went direct to the company and I said, if I buy a lot of 38, can I get a better discount? And so they sent me a coupon code to get a better discount, and I punched it in, and I saved like $113 on the number of switches. So I feel pretty good about that. Yeah. So hopefully in the next, I mean, it's a slow burn project. So I'll have a few switches here, a few switches there, and eventually the entire estate will be on controllable switches. Now, I'm not going to put a switch in for the garbage disposal, I decided. I think that one I can just leave manual. I don't need a smart switch to kick on a garbage disposal. I think that could be problematic. Although I was thinking, you know how like sinks, how when you like these really fancy modern sinks, when you bring your hand close to it, it just kind of turns on automatically? What if I did that, but with a garbage disposal? So when you put your hand inside it, it kicked on. See, wouldn't that be great?
You get your hand disposed of, right?
I'm kidding. I'm not that insane, but I did think about that.
You can make it do the opposite, so you can save a hand.
You could, but I'm sure that the like, how would you distinguish between a hand or some what? Like
you're the one thinking about how to turn it on. I'm thinking about how to turn it off.
Yeah, like maybe if you like push, like hold your nose and do something like.
Well, I mean, they have like table saws that can detect like if you put a hot dog on them, and they do like self-destruct so it doesn't cut the hot dog.
Yeah, it hits a brake, bam, and it just kills it, but it won't destroy the thing unless you keep doing it over and over again.
Yeah, then it'll probably just keep throwing hot dogs at it.
Right. Now that'd be kind of funny. Woo. I think there's a meme about that. Okay, great. So let's move on to WindowsFX. Who here gave WindowsFX a spin?
Twice.
Awesome sauce. I know Eris did. And I think his Pikachu is raising a hand. Yep, and he raised his hand on the in the Zoom thingy. Cool. Yeah, I did too. And so I guess we'll get into that. So the rules for this discussion is we're going to talk about have an objective, constructive conversation about WindowsFX. So you don't have to like it. We're just not going to do anything disparaging about it. We want to have all of our comments to be helpful and give constructive feedback about our experience in using it. And if I don't want to ignore the lowlights. I want to hit the highlights and the lowlights, and hopefully maybe if somebody in the WindowsFX team is watches this, that they have something valuable they can take back with them out of this. So our exploration of WindowsFX, we're going to talk about the different aspects of it. We're going to go through like different line items. And first, I want to tell you a little bit about WindowsFX. It's based on LinuxFX, at least that's the core of it, which is an Ubuntu derivative. It tries to take advantage of all the legacy Microsoft Windows user experiences. Actually, it's kind of harsh, isn't it? Legacy experiences. And so that the learning curve in Linux is minimal. WindowsFX users have a large set of faculties embedded in the system, brings basic software content for the operation of they use the term microcomputer, which made me smile a bit because I don't think we use that term anymore. But let's talk about legacy, so there we go. It did have some multimedia applications bundled into it, the plugins, general purpose codecs, and so forth. It's basically been around since 2007. So based on that, how did the installation process go for you? Maybe want to start it off what they thought?
The FX went just fine for me. It installs a lot easier if you have your. I use VirtualBox to begin with, and I gave it 4 cores, a CPU, and I gave it 6 gigabytes of RAM to work with. It installs much better if you have the 3D video acceleration turned off while you're installing it. So the FX installed really fine for me after I figured that out. I tried to install the Cinnamon. It put up a fight, and I still haven't got it installed yet. So I was playing with that today, and then I had to get up and do other things. But my installation progress was pretty good. And once you got it installed and you have all your VirtualBox guest editions plugged into it, then you can turn the 3D acceleration on, and the video and everything will work just fine.
I wonder if that was a VirtualBox-ism that bit you on that one. I didn't have any issues with the effects. So.
Well, I think what the problem was is I turned it off and I left it off and I had other issues because I forgot to turn it back on. We can get into that when we get in deeper into it. But
gotcha.
I didn't have any install issues, but I don't really turn on 3D acceleration in VirtualBox anymore. And I usually use the VBox VGA, I think it is. In most cases, that will just set your screen sometimes automatically now. And if you run it that way, I rarely have problems.
There's VGA, and then there's SVGA, and then there's the big SVGA one that they have at the bottom. The 3D acceleration will work with the regular SVGA that's just underneath the VBox VGA. If you're going to watch videos with your virtual machine, that is essential.
No, I don't have any problems.
Well, I'll tell you why in a bit with another experience.
All right. Well, for me, the installation
I want to burn out the.
Go ahead. Finish your thought.
I don't want to burn out the install conversation.
Right. Fair enough.
So the installation to me was perfectly fine. I did the WindowsFX 10 because the 11's in beta, and I thought it wouldn't be totally fair to try 11 yet. So I did 10. Maybe I'm just
I still rely on it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good file system.
It could be useful if you want to run, I think, like Lutris. I think some things in Lutris do require ext4 that'll work correctly with ButterFS.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the case with that.
That's interesting.
So
I wonder
for compatibility, we might want to use ext4.
It's only if you have, I think, if you have compression enabled.
That ButterFS is a problem, or okay.
For Lutris.
That's interesting. I did not know that. See, the more you know.
I didn't either.
So once it installed, which again was fine, rebooted, and I came into it gave you a nice little welcome, and I did very much appreciate that. And it also gave you the opportunity to add the different Windows layers, for lack of a better term, to make it more Windows compatible. And so that process went well. It gave you a warning about like you might think it hung, but it doesn't hang. I didn't notice that as an issue up until the very end, and I let it sit for a long time. Which, by the way, adding all the Windows stuff like it was the .NET. I know it installed Mono, I think also, or some sort of a Wine Mono thing. I have it written down. I just not in front of me, or I took snapshots. But that took a while. So I don't know how many.
There were some parts that seemed sluggish.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was downloading a lot of stuff, and I don't know from where.
Right.
And what it could have been. I mean, maybe just my location was an issue. Go ahead.
No, it was more than a gigabyte. I think twice it downloaded over 500 megabytes installing that stuff. Yeah, Wine CFG and Wine and some other stuff. It was over a gig for sure.
Yeah, it was a lot of stuff, but it's understandable for adding all the Windows compatibility requirements. I didn't actually test any of the Windows compatibility stuff because there's any Windows software I really run at this time, so I didn't actually test that piece of it. Anybody test that? And you know what? Actually, I'm jumping ahead.
I tested some old software that I've had for years and years and years that I still use now and then, like Real Draw Pro for Media Chance, and MP3 Tag, which has been around for a long, long time. That, like, you know, they come out with a new version like every 4 months or something. That's like a really good program to play with your MP3s and tag them with. It ran that fine.
Okay.
So I didn't try any of the latest greatest software because I don't have any because I quit buying it.
Yeah, again, for me, outside of games, I don't buy a whole lot of software. Well, that's not true. Outside of games primarily, I don't buy a whole lot of software. I do donate to a lot of projects, but yeah, I don't. It's usually stuff that I don't need. Anybody else have anything on the installation process?
I installed the 11 because I wanted to see what that was like. I tried to install it on God. Skip. No, I tried to. I ended up installing it in Legacy, which went real fine. But outside of that, no real problems installing it. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem installing it.
I'm actually on it. I'm on it right now.
Oh, you are. So you're actually running it.
Oh, great.
You're eating your dog food right now, sort of.
Yes,
So I say LinuxFX is in the chat, and so you can see that Steve's very own, is running your product right now, happily, apparently. Got a smile on his face. He always has a smile on his face, though. So.
Yeah, I have the V machine open, but I'm not running through it.
Yeah, I shut all that down because I don't want to risk something, going awry as I'm, streaming stuff. Things coming in and out. So I don't want to, I don't want something to blow up on me. So what the default applications? I know a lot of really good stuff in there. I did appreciate a lot, like the things that came right out of the gate. I also. I want to say I really appreciated that the Flatpak was already configured without me having to do a single thing. That to me was awesome sauce. And I didn't dig in to see what applications of the default applications were Flatpaks. I didn't dig into that. Now that I'm saying that, I think maybe I should have. But I installed a Telegram on there through the Flatpak and a few other applications. I like that they took the Plasma Discover. Or KD Discover, what's it called? Discover. They took Discover.
Yeah.
Yes,
Discover.
And they pretty much made it kind of Windows-esque. They changed the icon on it. I thought that was I thought it was cute. I hope that's not offensive to say. But yeah, I actually think Discover works great. It has for years now. For me anyway. So that was cool. It all seemed to work fine. Did anybody run updates? Speaking
mine
of applications.
constantly updated all week. The update procedure is kind of window-ish because it tells you it wants updates. You click on it and you get the update box and you get your update and then it wants to restart. Every time I want to update it, it wanted to restart. So I'd say, okay, restart. Then a black box would come up with the Windows logo in it and it's installing updates. Yeah, with the percentage of it installing it, and then it would restart again, and then it'd bring you to your login screen. Well, it actually bring you to your Linux kernel boot screen, then the login screen. Right.
I think it didn't actually reboot, but I'm not really sure actually what it did there. But it was kind of more Fedora-esque as far as I felt how it handled the updates, because I think it downloaded them.
Yeah, every time I got an update, it was like I was rowing a canoe.
Yeah. Well, I've never felt like that before, but that's interesting.
And there is no Flatpaks installed by default, but Flatpak itself is there.
Okay.
Right, and so is Snap too.
Oh, I didn't check that. That's great.
Yeah. So in looking at with the updates on the Windows FX 11, there would be a problem with its doing an update. Then it would tell you, like Dan said, to restart. And it wouldn't restart. It kept giving me an error, hello bin/hello or something like that, was stopping it from restarting. And I would have to go to, bring up the main menu and then go reboot from there, when it would come back, it would tell me those same updates were still waiting to install. So I ended up having to bring up the terminal. And I guess because it's based on KDE Neon, I had to run the sudo pkcon update to get the updates to run. So that's, and as you said, I mean, it's still in beta, but that was, I had to do that for each update.
Okay.
Was
I did like
in,
that.
Oh,
sorry,
Nate.
Con.
No, I was just wanted to know if that was in Discover. When you were
So it would bring up Discover for the updates. It would run the updates.
Yep.
Then when it was done, it would ask you to restart. And so I would hit yes, and then it would stop. I would go to the log out restart screen. You hit restart, or you wait the 20 seconds, and then it would stop. Go back to the desktop, and it would tell you that hello. Whatever bin it's in is having a problem. I did a screenshot of it. I could post it in BDLL, but so that was the problem I had. It was it wasn't working right in the Discover, but something in Hello was stopping it from rebooting.
That's interesting because I haven't updated mine yet, so I might check that out. Maybe I'll do some recording.
Is that voice assistant you're talking about?
There's like 4 updates that came out over the week.
Yeah, Hello is the voice assistant, but whatever is running, when you try to restart it after you try to do an update, you get an error message. I'll give me a minute and I'll post it in the BDLL Telegram group. So if you want to go ahead.
Oh, you know what? I said something that was false. I said I used the Windows 10, but actually I used the Windows 11 preview. I was inaccurate.
Yeah, that's right, because you used Discover, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to correct my my misstep. I thought it was 10, but I am an error. One of the things I really liked about that they did for you. So I have to use Teams from time to time, and so it was nice that they had it installed right out of the gate. So I think somebody who does use Windows and they installed, this, they basically have what they need to get going as a drop-in replacement. I thought that was really great. I didn't try TeamViewer out, so the AnyDesk and TeamViewer in there. So I think Aris, you probably put that in there. Did you actually try those out?
No, I didn't try them out, but I know they were there.
Okay. And Chrome Recovery Utility was in there?
Yes.
For me, Chrome Recovery would just bring up Chrome.
Yeah, I had one problem with Teams. Once I opened it up and looked at it from the panel and decided I didn't want to do anything with it, so I closed it. Then every time the machine rebooted, it would bring it up right away after you logged in. It added it to its startup menu list. At startup, start this stuff. Well, it added it to that, and I had to go into settings and actually undo that. It put it right in the settings menu.
I think the Chrome Recovery Utility, that's just an extension for Chrome. So, it's added to the start menu though.
Oh.
Yeah, like I said, I tried running it to see what it was, because I thought, that would be cool, because normally you have to have Windows too. I mean, you can install a Chrome, cloud ready, but it's not an easy process. And when I clicked on Chrome Recovery Tool, it just brought up Chrome and didn't go to any extension.
Oh.
What I found interesting is they've got a lot of the Microsoft stuff on there, which is the Microsoft Office Online. So they got all of that, which I'd have to think would open in a
browser.
In a browser, yeah. And they also have only Office as well. So that's which you've got the option of the browser and also the local Office as well, which is quite good.
I wonder why they chose only Office, because it looks more like Microsoft Office.
Probably.
No.
Probably the interface, I would think. The interface.
Right.
I think in previous BDLs, people have said that only Office has better compatibility, but I have never tested it myself, if that's true.
Yeah. I haven't had compatibility issues with LibreOffice in years, so I couldn't say. It's probably some more like, I don't know, maybe the more serious Office users that would have that problem. Maybe
I'd have to think a lot of the compatibility issues with that is complex Excel sheets and stuff. That's where, if you got highly complex Excel sheets, that's where you come across some incompatibilities. I think that's where you have most of your problems, I believe.
I think the majority of compatibility for LibreOffice is Writer and Word, and the other products, it's a lot more diminishing returns. I think with like Excel, what's the database? I always forget. Whatever the database, I don't think there's an equivalent. I think for LibreOffice.
Microsoft Access, but I don't think
Access. There we go. Yeah.
Oh, Access. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the question was, does it have WSL? No, I don't think so. I didn't check for that, but I would imagine maybe it has a Linux subsystem for Windows. Maybe, I don't know. Instead, it has got the opposite because with all the wine stuff.
On Twitter, Wimpy was showing he's running using Ubuntu Mate. He's running through QEMU, Windows 10, Windows 11, running Ubuntu's Mate through WSL.
Nice. That's fantastic. I thought. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, what point are we up to? We on
some default
discussions?
Yeah, well, just the applications.
Default applications. Is it?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
How we thought of it. Now, as far as the application selection, do you think that was adequate for you? Like, as far as do you think that there's some other thing that should have installed by default, or was the default pretty much good to go?
I thought it was too much.
Too much?
It was too much. It was too much, and things like, so they got all this access to Flatpaks. So OBS is installed out of the box. It's version 25. I mean, if you're a YouTuber, if you're doing anything, version 25 is like, there's not a lot of the plugins that will work with it, and DI won't work with it. GIMP was not too far behind. GIMP installed was 2.10.18 when they're on 2.10.20.28 in the Flatpak. But yeah, especially in 11, a lot of software that I don't think any normal user would really use. Just an honest opinion. It was over. It was like Jacques Renier, took his Mukulu Linux and married this quite a bit. And no offense to the Linux FF team, it's beautiful. It's KDE customized really nicely. A lot of work has gone into it, and I don't mean to knock it, but there's a lot of software that I don't understand.
I wonder if the only reason why they have Chrome browser installed along with Edge and Firefox is because they want the Chromebook recovery utility, and that would need Chrome installed. Yeah. I wonder if that's the reason why they have 3 browsers.
Well, I can sort of
Edge is a beta. Actually, it's kind of broken. Like if you go to type # and HTTPS on the address bar, it gives you semicolon instead of ##. And it's really hard to get it out of Bing.
Well, all the Microsoft Edges and Linux right now, I think it's beta.
I think I sort of understand why there's so many applications out of the box, because you are running something that looks like Windows. So to be honest, at the end of the day, if people do come from Windows to run this thing here, there's going to be a high level of expectation that certain things are going to work, right? And also you're trying to cover all bases. So I think you probably need to have a few familiar applications on both sides of the fence, maybe. I don't know. That's
I don't know. When you look at Windows really comes with hardly anything, except like now it's coming with Teams and that. But the history of Windows, I mean, they've never had a lot of software out of the box. Never.
That's true. But the history of Windows is you go around and you search for your applications, you download all these ridiculous things that install add-ons to your browsers and things like that, which is not the case in here, I suppose. But there's a lot of shenanigans go on with installing Windows applications, and it makes you vulnerable at the same time.
I actually think that the breadth of applications they had installed was actually kind of a good thing. And the reason I say that is because discovering applications is sometimes is a stumbling block in the Linux world. And so having those extra applications there to look at and experiment with is easier than going out and finding applications and then installing them and then experimenting with them. I think just from a discoverability perspective, it's probably good to have a recommended set. You can always remove them. It's not hard to remove the applications, but I don't think it was too much.
There's quite a bit of, I mean, there's a few things that I've never heard of. CID password changer. They have quite a bit in here that I don't know. I mean, could it be that it's Brazilian based and maybe the internet's not that great and they figured they'll just load up an ISO for someone to be able to start out really well out of the box?
Yeah, those little odd ones, I have to agree with Steve there. There are some little odd ones there I've never heard of either, but yeah, there might be a reason for that as well, but hard to say. But I am surprised to hear that OBS is behind in versions. Is that because that's from the repository, not from Snap?
I believe so. Yeah. So I uninstalled it and installed the Snap. So tomorrow morning I can show it on the stream. And then GIMP, I uninstalled it and installed the Flatpak.
What show again is that, Steve? What show again is that?
Steve's very own.
The theming is really good. I actually have a copy of Windows 11, but it's a developer's edition. I mean, and even the Dolphin file manager, the icons and everything in it, you can barely tell them apart. You don't get the box like you do in Windows at the top that's got all the little tool things in it if you want to pull it down, say copy and paste and everything in it. But besides that, they look identical. They really went all out to make sure that the theming was as close as they could get it to the real Windows 11.
Oh, I agree with you there. It is beautiful, and some of the animations. The animations are really neat. I don't know if Windows 11 does this, but when you click on a link, you get the little around it.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, it's quite nice.
Yes,
that is cool.
They've done an extremely good. Well, are we moving on from applications? Because I did want to mention the aesthetics.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I just want to make a note though. So maybe it would be a recommendation for the developers instead of, since they already have snaps installed, it might be better to install the OBS snap over the repo snap, perhaps. And it is, since it is Ubuntu based, it's probably going to work great in that regard.
I did stumble across some some application bugs, and more like with the way the system handles them. Right out of the box, when I wanted to click on a music file, it opens Audacity for music. It doesn't open VLC like it does for videos.
That's a UX.
Yeah,
it's not really a bug necessarily, because if you do a right click, you can say open with, and you can change that order at any point. I know that like when on my system, if I install Audacity, it likes to insert itself at the top for different sound files. I just manually change that.
Yeah, because in the settings, it doesn't have a place for a preferred application for any multimedia, anything. There's only, I think, like mail, like a notepad or something, and one other thing. There's only 3 things in there in the settings to pick for those, and there's nothing for multimedia.
Oh, is that the cinnamon version you're talking about, Dan?
No, the 11 version.
Oh.
Now what I did is I actually went into the store and got caffeine, because I wanted to get a KDE, thing to match the KDE stuff that it comes with. And it's a multimedia player too. It's kind of bare. It's KAFFEINE.
Yeah, it's caffeine with a K.
I call it
I just use VLC because it just works with everything.
I installed that in it, and then there was a button somewhere else that said in the settings to use system other thing or something like that, and I clicked that button and it switched it over to the caffeine. But that's what I discovered with the applications, because I really, as far as multimedia goes, I worked it over the coals.
I was
Shickle,
going to say, Nate.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I
You're
was
gonna
going
say?
to say when it comes to applications, I think sometimes for the developers, it's probably better off to put in some sort of discoverability rather than install some applications. So a way for people to discover applications off the bat rather than, and the way of that you can get them rather than actually install them if they're a little bit behind. So I think maybe that's something that developers should look at.
Can I jump
Check
in
them.
here?
Anybody
Because-
try
Absolutely.
a printer?
So that's actually, I know a lot of people will say that like Windows has a bunch of crap installed by default, but little known fact, the stuff actually isn't installed by default. Most of that stuff are just items on the menu that if you click on them, they then install, which I think would be a really good way to go about this, because it'd actually be more like Windows in that regard. You'd get the most up-to-date version once you click on it, and it doesn't actually take up space unless you you choose to grab it.
Good point.
That is an interesting idea. I wonder
Yeah.
if there's an easy way of doing that in the existing desktop environments. I imagine you could script
Technically, yes. So you could use AppStream data to pull up whatever particular app you want to show directly in Dolphin or whatever, or you could even have that just call it directly and tell it to install, just by like creating a separate like entry for it. And yeah, it's totally possible.
It's interesting. That's a very interesting idea, and I like it. Because yeah, that'd be a great way to go about that. For sure.
So if you remember, Ubuntu Mate has the boutique, and I think that's the approach, the more digital should copy, a curated mini store. Because if you just do like the main store with all of everything in the repo, it's like really hard to get to. But but the boutique is very curated, very to the point, and it has categories. You can easily find some of the best software on Linux quickly.
And that's a good point, Aris, because Ubuntu Mate do that. So does MX Linux. They've got, and I could probably think of a couple more distros too, where they've got curated apps, and probably the most popular ones that you would come across for sure.
I don't want to speak
the
for
least
Shickle, but I'm sure
broken
he has
ones
a
at the top.
contribution on that one too. What's another? I can't think of it. What's the other?
Watson.
Yes, of course.
Watson.
Something Mike or Watson. Yeah. What's it? I can't. It's right on the tip of my-
OS.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
I was going to steal their thunder. I think that'd be wrong.
I gotta speak up for Peter. He would say Solus because they
Solus.
created
Okay.
apps.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if they do or not. They do. I think they did it. At least they used to, right?
What's that,
Did he-
Dan?
It's a printout. I got it to print.
Yeah.
It's a KDE printout. It's even got the little gremlin in the bottom.
Thought you were serving us a
Little
notice.
gremlin.
Don't
That's a
feed
dragon,
it after
right,
midnight.
Conky?
Yeah, Conky. Don't feed it after midnight, okay? Dan.
I just thought I'd show you that, yes, the Linux driver for Epson did work with it just fine.
Is that your dot matrix that you were using?
No, that's my inkjet.
Oh, okay.
Or my workforce ink printer.
Did
The scanner
anybody play
works
with the Windows
too.
PowerShell?
I don't know how to use it, and
Okay.
I should learn because I've played around with it a little bit, but I don't feel comfortable there yet. It's like
I loved it.
yeah.
I was a big fan of that being installed. I was like, "Ooh, yay! I don't have to like grab it." But
Now Thomas couldn't be here, and I think this is a good thing to put in there. But he said when making profiles in console, it said it didn't work. He wanted to switch the default shell from PowerShell to Bash, and he tried doing that with the console profiles, but it didn't work for him. So he had to change it using the user mod command. So I don't know if that's I didn't try changing it. I didn't do anything with it.
So I've seen this a couple of times, and I think it depends on how the default is set, because you can set a shell based on the user itself, or you can set a shell based on the application that runs the terminal. And as far as I know, the user one will always override the terminal one if it's set in a certain way, because basically like the terminal spawns and it's like, yeah, by default use this prompt, but like the user, when that spawns in, right, because the terminal opens as a specific user, it will just use whatever shell that user's profile is set to. So it'll just override whatever you put in console because it's happening on a user level, not on the terminal emulator level.
Gotcha. So I know I use fish shell, which that's like saying ATM machine, on OpenSUSE, but I only change it in console. I don't change it system wide because I had an issue when I changed it system wide. There were some things that some connections or ties that didn't work exactly right, and it didn't have access to all my directories, so
it will break a lot of stuff.
Right. So I just use it at the user level to make my life easier, but and that seems to solve that. All right, so moving on, what are some general user experiences that you'd like to share with the class?
The way it boots up,
First,
the different versions, the Windows icon changes depending if it's Windows 11, Windows 10, or I think it's Windows. I'm not sure what the cinnamon version is trying to emulate. I think Windows 10. I don't know.
I think
But
so.
yeah, every single one looks different.
I like the it's like the four squares of the Windows logo. It kind of felt like Windows except blue, essentially, which I think is ironic because of blue screen of death, and so that kind of made me laugh a little bit. Like inside, I was laughing. Just blue boxes, but not of death. Actually, I like the Windows logo in the different hues of blue. I don't know if anybody else is the same on that. If they thought that, I just thought it made for a nice, I think a nice icon. I thought. So, what about the theming? Did anyone play with the theming on it? See if they could change aspects of how it looked?
I
was afraid to break it.
Come
I
on,
was
Dan.
kind of in like a weird halfway point because like I think that this is a surprisingly good compromise between trying to copy absolutely all of the Windows aesthetic, like because if I don't know if you noticed, like when you got notifications, they didn't look really like Windows notifications. They still had like the little breeze icons on them and stuff like that. So like it felt kind of familiar on a plasma level, but still familiar on a Windows level. Like I thought that was kind of cool. Like I typically don't advocate for distributions shipping things that try to like mimic things entirely, but I think they did a pretty good job of it. I think it's kind of a nice uncanny valley.
The Windows FX settings was so Windows, like it like I wouldn't have known. Like if I just saw that screenshot, I'd be like Windows. I wouldn't have even picked up on the coloring differences or anything like that. It was just so Windows. It looked nice. Windows. For everything you can say about Windows, they do seem to care about the overall aesthetic, except some things in the control panel still are based on Windows 2000. But let's not talk about that. But yeah, I thought the general theme was it seemed, if you didn't touch anything, the theme was good. I thought, but I like a dark theme, and so I decided I would change it because why not? It broke a lot of things like visually. So the Windows FX window, whatever, it became kind of almost unusable if I changed it to a dark theme, even if I used the global theme. So I used a global theme of the dark start bar. That's where I left it, and that was fine. So so what did you think of the theming of the Office apps? I didn't really dig into that. Go ahead. You can derail it any way you want, Shickle. You can say.
Oh, okay, cool. I was just gonna say because something that I think is really interesting and hopefully, at least as far as it seems, maybe it's just because they're using like the same or similar. I can't tell if these are exactly the same icons as are in Windows, but they feel like direct copies for a lot of them.
They do, don't they?
I'm not gonna like, poke any legal bears, but what I do think, and I hope they realize that this, because it's kind of like something magical about how Windows does like its design and theming. There are a lot of points how like Windows is sometimes inconsistent with its theming, but I would say it's actually kind of intentionally inconsistent, and this inconsistency creates comfort, because in a lot of environments, when you try and create something where all of it is exactly the same and uniform, anytime anything is slightly different, it feels terrible. But with Windows, despite the fact that they're using different design languages everywhere, I think this kind of allows more comfort in things that don't tend to follow the exact same appearance or style or use the same toolkits. So I'm hoping the Windows FX people pick up on that as well, and that's part of why it works so well in this case, because it's actually a really clever way of designing things that Microsoft has kind of sorted out through the progression of Windows 10's development.
I think their home icons are very nice. I like the colors they've used for the home icons. They're just sensational.
Like they're clean and they're pleasant. They're just very pleasant icons.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with any other icon sets, but they're very calming almost, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
Maybe not. Kind of they have a softness to it. But anyway, that was just me. So I think we kind of touched on it earlier, but the update process. So I used Discover to update it. I didn't have any problems with the updates, but you said, Dan, you did have problems with the updates?
It just felt kind of wonky because I didn't manually go and update. It told me it wanted updates, so I did what it told me what to do. So it would go download its updates, then it'd want to restart. It'd restart, you get a black box, and it's got a little Windows logo in the middle of it, and underneath it, it says installing updates with a percentage thing. And it'd do its percentage thing, hit 100%. It would restart, and then you'd get like the Linux, start this program or go to fix it, screen. And you hit enter, it'd boot right in it, and it's done and over with. But, I let it all do it naturally. I didn't force any updates, by looking for them.
Yeah, I just clicked
general.
Update. It did its thing, rebooted. I saw the installing updates like Windows would do, and I got a chuckle out of that.
Thing
I enjoyed that.
I encountered when it did this for updates, it never asked for a password to install them. And same thing with installing software from the store. It just went and did it. It didn't ask for a pseudo thing or anything.
Top doesn't either.
I had to, when I installed the Flatpak, I did have to put my password in for that. So
I didn't try a Flatpak, but normal stuff.
I don't mind that you don't need a password to do updates. That seems like that should be just, it's your system. You clicked update. They're already, set for you.
Well, suppose you want to keep a package the same. Suppose you want to look at your packages and not update certain packages.
Well, then you can go and look at them and don't update them. Like deselect the ones that you don't want to update.
Yeah.
You can do that easily in Discover. So it shouldn't require a password to do that.
I'm not that KDE proficient, so
you just have to look at them. There's a little radio box next to it. Just click it, and then it deselects it. So next to whatever package.
Awesome sauce.
It is. It's a little bit spicy, kind of sweet. It was great with wings. I think it's mayo based. I'm not sure.
Okay. Now there's one thing that I thought that was kind of wet. It's kind of weird because you go into settings and down at the bottom of the right corner it says basic control panel. I kind of thought that you would have a control panel and then have something that says advanced control panel. It almost feels backwards.
I didn't have that experience myself.
It's the minute you open up the settings, you got to list all the stuff that looks like Windows settings, and in the right corner, the last setting in the right bottom corner, it says basic control panel, and there's even more stuff in there. But by right, you should have all your basic stuff right out in front of you, and then if you need advanced stuff, you should have a button to push to go to advanced control panel.
So I did go into the plasma settings, and I played on there a little bit, because it's still in there. But just because I wanted to play in it, I did notice that the Windows FX settings did bring up some of the plasma modules. So in a way, I kind of feel like the Windows FX settings are like the simple version, and the system settings are the more complex version there. I'm glad they didn't remove it. It was all still there and exposed. So now, were there any areas? Someone else have any other general impressions they want to share?
Only thing that I noticed that I kind of really liked was that Wine was already pre-installed. And if you went to the control panel, you could actually just click on exe MSI compatibility, and it gave you some, a couple options to help you install with it. And I tried to install like silly stuff like Notepad, and I think I installed Minesweeper or something, try it out.
That's necessary.
And it works. Yeah. Well, there wasn't any games installed. Well, all this software, I don't know if you guys noticed, there wasn't any games installed. There was 2 remote desktops, AnyDesk and the other one, I can't remember the name of it, which I thought
TeamViewer,
yeah. And there was the other, which else was installed? There was another one on top of that, I think there was 2 or 3, right? Remote something. Oh, look. I can't find it, but yeah, there was a couple.
It was AnyDesk, I believe.
Yeah, AnyDesk, and I thought there was a third one. I'm just saying, I thought 3 was odd. And there was one other thing that I noticed. When I hit print screen, the Spectacle screen capture tool came up, which was actually really nice. I never used it before. It was pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad. I like Flame Shot.
Plasma's screenshot.
Yeah,
I like Flame Shot
a little bit better for some things, but I think Spectacle is great. I use it probably more because it's real quick, just to like grab a window or the whole screen just very quickly.
Yeah, remote desktop client.
I watched a bunch of music videos on it, and they run fine. I watched a movie on it. It did fine pass through, but here's where we go back to the VirtualBox and the 3D accelerator. The video was kind of like a little jittery, almost on the edge of maybe it's skipping frames and stuff like that, and it was irritating. But I went back and took a look at our Sparky install and noticed that the 3D acceleration was turned on, and that one ran really smooth when we did that last week. So I went back into VirtualBox and clicked on the 3D acceleration. It cleared all that up because I was using almost all of my 4 CPUs just to run video. They were at 75% and higher. And then I was looking at them on the host machine, and it was poking them really hard too. And boy, I clicked on 3D acceleration in VirtualBox, and all of a sudden the CPUs were all nice and happy and cool and below 25% most of the time on everything. But that was one little hiccup that kind of bothered me. I struggled for a while with, and didn't realize, that was, why does Sparky run so good? And this one's kind of give me crappy video output, and it's a VirtualBox setting.
I didn't use VirtualBox there. Did anybody run this on bare metal? Besides, I think Steve did. You did? Okay, Shickle. I can't hear you, Steve.
You're muted, Steve.
I mean, it's not a bad,
Steve.
it's not totally a bad thing.
But that
So
was the
Shickle,
only
you-
main struggle I had was my, fault with that.
So, Shickle, you said you ran on bare metal,
I did, yes.
and did it run?
It's,
How'd it run for you?
It performs pretty normally, but I'm not the best. So, well, I am the best, but I'm not like the best judge of of, like, because
So
I'm running
humble.
on like 8 cores, 16 threads, but I'm also like overclocked and I have 32 gigs of RAM. So I like, even if it was a little hungry, I wouldn't have really noticed. So yeah. So
Okay.
I didn't run into any problems though. I mean, graphically everything worked all right for me. I didn't try dark mode because I'm a heathen, and but generally it performed all right.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can.
You got it. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Tip
I was
top.
having all sorts of problems. All audio was popping in and out. The keyboard, I selected regular US keyboard, 101 whatever for the PC, and a lot of I'm trying to type in a chat room, and a lot of the the little apostrophe in that would not type. So I got out of it.
I'm glad you bring that up. So I've never used anything other than generic keyboard on any computer, and I've never had a problem. Has
This
anybody
is the
had
first problem, and I've used, so actually what I installed it on was my son's his older Asus that I can get Linux to run on it, and I have to go through a couple of things to get it started, but power key's broken on it because I just bought him an HP Omen 17.
So how do you start it if the power key's broken?
These older Asus, it's a Republica Gamer laptop, and it's an Asus. So back in the day, Asus had you can bring up the Asus utility, and there were shortcuts. Well, I never reinstalled Asus, especially on Linux. You can. So it boots it. It says no Asus utility found. Hit any key to boot, and you just hit any key to boot. So because last week one of the first things I installed on it was Manjaro KDE, and everything worked fine there.
Okay. I thought maybe you had to use a paper clip. You had to bend it just right and then jam it in, and hopefully it didn't short the whole system out.
I'm kind of lucky because I mean this is older and I mean he needed something better for all the 3D stuff he's doing with school.
Mm-hmm.
And a new computer was going to be his Christmas present, but it happened to come on my birthday. He got a nice laptop for my birthday.
Santa's so nice.
But so this, it's got an AMD graphics card in it. It's still a decent, to run Linux on there and that. And as long as my wife's not happy, I got to keep another computer in the house. But don't tell her. And but I thought this would be this would end up probably be really a good testing laptop because it's a lot more powerful than the other HPs that I'm using.
Well, Thomas, or Bat Castle, as we sometimes know him, in the chat, he gave me some notes. He couldn't be here tonight, so we miss Thomas. But he said when he said I tried WindowsFX 10 Plasma and 11. Overall, I think both are interesting projects, which should be expanded upon further to help Windows users feel at home on Linux. But a lot of work needs to be done before it goes on my Good for Linux Newbies stamp of approval list. And here's some of the ones that for him. So for the WindowsFX 10, when installing compatibility software, the terminal window that shows download progress hung and the process never completed. Helloa needs to be muted by default. I just didn't install that myself. I don't want something to talk to me because I'm a curmudgeon. You need to be able to set the system-wide Qt theme from within the Windows-like setting app. What you can change is not changing all the colors, and that's a separate issue, I think. For WindowsFX 11, originally I had some issues with the keyboard mapping, so he also had an issue with keyboard. When I tested the same mapping on the WindowsFX 10, it responded differently. Not sure it was up there. Making profiles in console didn't work for him. I think I brought that up earlier. When installing compatibility software, it would often ask to reboot while I understand this is likely not something that devs of WindowsFX can do much or anything about, but there was nothing saying whether I should reboot or not in the window of the process started at. Also, the process hung at one point and never got unstuck. And I had the same issue. And that is a good point, actually. If there was some sort of a window that says either make sure you press reboot later or restart later, if that's what you want. I think restart now would have just restarted Wine and it would make a difference. So maybe it doesn't make a difference either way. I don't know. I don't have an answer on that. That is a good question, though. He says overall he thinks this isn't a bad distro. If WindowsFX does have a native .exe and MSI support like they claim, then this distro would likely be a great place to start for people wanting to get into Linux without leaving all the comforts of Windows. However, it needs some polish before it's ready for prime time. See, I think it does need a little. I mean, it was a preview. It's not ready yet, but I think those are pretty good sentiments to have there. I think that'd be a great stepping off point for a lot of people if that all works totally flawless. So I think Dan said, wait, who installed Minesweeper? It was Jinda. So the installation process for .exe files, did it seem like it was like Windows-like?
It just had a dialog box in the settings section, and you clicked on it, and it asked you which one you wanted to use. I think it was like Wine Tools and something else. I mean, it was straightforward. It was simple. It was just I think it was the best they could do with what they had. I mean, this is not Windows, it's Linux. So,
right. Yeah, I think that's cool. I should have tried that. I don't know why I didn't. Probably because I wasn't focused on it. But that's something I should have probably given a little more of a taken for a trip to see if I could install just like TurboTax or something that is something I need. Probably wouldn't work, but it'd have been a fun thing to try. So, does anybody else have anything they want to kick out there? If not, I'll move on to why somebody should give it a spin.
I was just gonna say that I hope that they pick a certain app for one thing, like the remote app. They should just pick one and maybe have an option, some kind of screen where you can easily add another one. Maybe like any desk. Maybe that's not easy to add easily. So maybe you can have like a welcome screen that helps you do that instead of adding everything all at once.
Okay, that's a good point. I think maybe there could be some refinement there. Maybe some. I think like Schickel brought up, like with the whole app stream thing. Maybe a few options. It could be like a link to in the menu, like remote desktop. You click on that, it opens up these are your 3 options. Maybe I don't know, and then you'd choose of those 3. I don't know. That's just saying. Because I know TeamViewer is very popular. I've never actually used the AnyDesk and I've used Remote Desktop, for local stuff, but that's it.
Yeah, I have to say I haven't had a lot of chance to do a lot of testing on this during the week, but I remember I bought a. Remember the program in Windows called Nemo? You could make your movies and CDs and all that.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got one of those that I bought from the internet, so I wouldn't mind trying that because that's a little bit complex, but just to see if it installs and runs. So I'm definitely going to do that. So I want to try that out. But they've definitely covered all bases as far as applications are concerned. But yeah, maybe like people are saying, there's probably just a little bit too many, maybe.
Could be. Yeah, it could be. I thought it was fine, but that was me. Kind of akin to my early Linux experiences when I just kind of threw everything at you. You got to go through it bit by bit, and I enjoyed that. That was part of the fun, I thought, when I started Linux. Like, look at all these applications. What is Pigeon?
Yeah,
that has nothing to do with a bird. So
I thought it was very interesting myself. For me, personally, there's way too many settings in it to tinker with, and the applications were a little, over the top. But I guess giving them a bunch of something is better than giving them nothing. I could have felt some of the more important things like the music player and stuff like that should have been more, geared for music. It's not like all my MP3s are trash, so let's start out with Audacity,
Well,
But
I don't think we mentioned, but it does come with Spotify, which is not a lot of distros.
yeah,
That is good.
that's probably a positive thing for a lot of people. There's a lot of things I did not look at, so I'm not going to really make very many comments on that. But I got away from Windows because of a lot of overkill in it. And for me, operating system is a tool to get your apps up and running so you can play with them. It's not something I want to tinker with day in and day out. So for some people, they might find it a great thing to migrate to. If they're familiar with Windows 11, they can find some similarity in the FX 11.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my thoughts on it.
I think the risk you take with something like this, looking so much like Windows, is when people get into it, the expectation is going to be there. So you really got to make sure that everything does work, I suppose. And the one thing that you mentioned, Nate, was the dark theme. That didn't look good at all, the dark theme. So I just quite often wonder whether if things like that don't work, what does that do to the expectation of people that are trying it out?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it is a preview, so I'm not going to, beat on it too hard.
Beta. I suppose, yes. I keep forgetting it's beta because I downloaded the Cinnamon one as well, which I don't think is beta, but the 11 is beta. So I'm sorry. Yes, I keep forgetting to mention that. So it is a beta. So I suppose that's something they can look at. And yes, and I might get into it a little bit more this week if I get a chance.
I actually think the dark theme looks really nice. I have that going on right now.
And it's the settings. If you open the settings up, it doesn't look real good.
The WindowsFX settings looks
Do
all.
you mean it doesn't look good because it doesn't look like Windows, or are there breakages in the apps?
No, it's just breaks it.
You can't read some of the text, and then it has like blocks of dark and fields of white, and it looks rough. So, but I'm sure they're going to work on that. I'm sure it's a process. So, I
had a weird bug in which I tested out the Cinnamon version, the Plasma version, and the Windows 11 version. And the first two versions, not the Windows 11 version, they wouldn't shut down easily on VirtualBox. I didn't install it. I just ran it on live mode, and they would not shut down correctly. I would have to forcefully shut it down.
Maybe they didn't want you to shut it down.
Maybe. But Windows 11 did actually shut down correctly. So I wasn't sure what was the difference there, but the first two wouldn't.
Yeah, I can't say. So why should somebody give WindowsFX a shot? Why should someone take some time out and give it a whirl?
It's for the curious.
For the curious.
Yeah, that's the word I was trying to come up with.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, like I said, I compare it to, Jacques and his Makulu Linux. I mean, part of it looks really great, but he throws so much in there that it's like, where do I go? What do I start? Why do we have to have 3-4 different menus and things like that? I mean, it's starting out to be really nice. I mean, for me, all the types of software that's in there that comes with it, I would probably remove 90% of it probably because it's something that I wouldn't use, and I'm not a Microsoft person, so I don't need any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't take away from the team that they've done a fantastic job. I mean, I'm probably gonna have to look at their versions of Windows 10 and that to see how that looks. But they've taken time. They've tried to really put something together, and I hope it doesn't come as a knock, but it's just so much. It's like the kitchen sink is in there too, and you don't really need it, Again, maybe hearing from them why they throw so much into it, like I said, because they're from Brazil and maybe internet access is limited or not really good. One of my followers was from Sao Paulo, and he would get on once in a while, and it would take him like overnight to download something. So maybe it saves them from having to install anything. And that's a thought, kind of like what's that one distro made for underprivileged countries and that that's loaded with all flat packs.
Endless
I wish I
OS.
could yes, Endless.
Yes.
There we go.
Thank you. And you especially trying to download like that 16 gig ISO for everything, but that could be. I mean, I'd like to hear from the developers on that. Why? But you can't take away the work that they've done on it and the things that they've done. How they're getting away with maybe some of the things that they're doing with Microsoft's branded products. I don't know. But I hope they they develop further and they go further with this.
So just as a tangent, that Endless OS, the big version, it comes with your own copy of Wikipedia, I think.
Wow.
That's a lot of text.
I guess to make this Xbox controller work correctly, you have to install Xbox driver 0888.
Not
That's what it's telling
0887.
me in order to. No,
I
it
think
says
if you want
0888.
I think if you wanted to sell this to someone, I think you would. I honestly think you'd have to tell them that if you like the familiar look of Windows, but you don't want the headaches of updates and slow starts and so forth, try this out, because that takes away all those headaches. It's got a familiar look, and it's more than likely got the applications that you need.
I think a lot of care took place in order to make it look like Windows, like a lot of little details.
Oh, for sure.
And especially like the
for
boot screen,
sure.
like little details everywhere all throughout the OS. And even like the free office, I'm not sure. I'm not that familiar with it, but it seems like they even themed the free office icons to look like MS Office icons. They make sure that work that way. So I think if you're really invested in Windows and the Microsoft ecosystem, you already have like everything there. You have VS Code, you have Teams, you have the Office links, or maybe like an Office compatibility layer. That's probably the biggest selling point for the distro.
Yeah. For me, I think that they did a great job in appearance. Outside of the dark theme not working as I would expect, I did a great job of theming it. I like how it's got just enough round with just enough, like a nice mixture of the flat and the, 3D pop in your face. It's kind of a blend of the pre-Metro style and the post-Metro style that Windows kind of used. I like how they took Plasma and made it, because Plasma is so flexible anyway. I like how they took Plasma and made it what they did, which kind of proves that Plasma is just so customizable, and without any hacks, it's very customizable. I will say though, the periodic notification that it's WindowsFX free edition would probably get on my nerves. I did have to give the money to make it go away.
Yeah, that pops up every time you start it up.
Yeah, or something else. But I really think that their default application selection was, it was very acceptable as far as, between having Teams. I think I actually like Microsoft Edge. I use it if I have to use a Chrome-based browser. I tend to use that one right now, if Chromium doesn't cut it, and I have a good experience with that. I couldn't use it because of the lack of dark theme, because it'd be hard on my eyes for long term. But that's really the only thing that would really stop me from using it. And it's not built on an OpenSUSE base, so there you go. I said it. I just gotta kind of have that OpenSUSE base to make me happy. But if it were, if you were to slap all that on an OpenSUSE base, I think I'd feel great about giving it to anybody. So, but that's an opinion, And with that, Unless someone has anything else they want to say about Windows FX before we put a button on it.
Well, I was gonna say, talking on what you were saying, it's not on OpenSUSE. I think sometimes I think it's probably worthwhile that these developers put out, say, like just the desktop itself, so people can use it on any platform they wish. So that's
they
probably
could.
not a bad idea.
So because the way Plasma works, you can actually export that global theme, and as long as you include all the configuration bits to it, so as far as like icons, and then like how they configure the panel and so forth, you absolutely could then import that into any other Plasma desktop, and it would work just the same.
Yeah.
So there's a Unity theme for Plasma, and it looks a lot like Unity. You don't have some of the functions of Unity, but it looks and behaves a lot like Unity, minus the HUD. And I think that's pretty well done. It was a great, if nothing else, it was a great proof of concept for, going from Unity to, instead of GNOME, going Unity to Plasma. It could have been a possibility.
Yeah, but don't forget to have the Cinnamon desktop as well, for their Windows version as well. So there is.
I think that's supposed to mimic Windows 10.
Yeah, Windows 10. Yeah, that's correct. Yes, this one's 11. Yep.
I'm sure there's a way to do that with Cinnamon as well. Just probably some text files.
Well, yeah, Cinnamon by default is kind of supposed to mimic Windows 7 without. It originally mimicked Windows XP, but everybody kind of complained about the big long buttons at the bottom. So then they made them the boxes like they are in Windows 7.
But yeah, I think they've done an amazing job of the aesthetics and to make it look like Windows 11, although I'm not overly familiar what Windows 11 looks like because I haven't had really much to do with that, mainly Windows 10, but I have seen some screenshots and a couple of odd videos here and there, and it does look strikingly resemblant.
Yeah, too bad Adam's not here because he actually has been using it. He got the insider version, and he says there's some good things about it and there's some bad things about it.
But I think there's no doubt that they're trying to make a what can you say? They're trying to make some money out of it as well and make it their own distro. So kudos to them for trying to do that. I think that's the reason for the little what can you say? The pop-up, the little pop-up and what was that pop-up that comes up when you start it?
It's the trial, more or less, edition.
The trial pop-up. That's what I was thinking about. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, they do deserve some kind of money or compensation for all the hard work, that they did. I mean, even though it's counterfeit, it could pass as the real thing if somebody didn't know the difference.
Absolutely. Well, you got pop-up, you got annoying pop-ups. So, it's really feeling like Windows, isn't it?
Oh, I'll tell you, on Windows 10, with the new HP Omen that my son's got, I've never seen them on the Aces so much as they are coming up on, for some of the, he's got, there's, I think HP, they have their own little game, not quite like Steam or that, but game thing that comes up and, let's get past the trial and that keeps popping up.
Oh, yeah.
All right, and with that, we have to choose our distribution for next week. So there's some new releases. FairOS 2021.10. That's always a good time, FairOS. Could check out Red Hat, I suppose. No, it's a development release.
Red Hat.
Really nothing else that's new that's standing out to me.
Garuda, if we ever tried that one, that would Pinky
Garuda
brought
Linux?
that up to me that I should mention it.
Garuda Linux.
It is number,
Garuda
believe it or not,
Linux.
it is number 8 on Distro
I
Watch.
see
I
that.
never got there.
Pizza Loving Nerd has been doing videos again, and he did one. He kept calling it Gordita.
Gordita Linux. That
Yeah,
is
Gordita
absolutely
Linux.
delicious. I would definitely have a Gordita Linux.
excuse me.
In fact, I think they should change the name of it now.
I'm just throwing that out there to throw it out there.
No, it's good. Makes sense.
I mean, we can do Farron, we can do, well, we did MX not too long ago.
Yep, we did a beta.
The
There's
number
also-
one distro on DistroWatch.
Yep, I see that. Well, that's because Dolphin has a bot, right? Dolphin Oracle.
I don't know how you feel about trying Fedora.
It's still not out though. This is the beta.
Yeah. It's a beta.
It's a beta. Yeah, we kind of should wait until the real deals come out so we don't beat them up too hard.
Right. I think, let's see. We talked about doing pop as well. I haven't seen pop in a few years. Almost 3 years now. I think it's the last time I tried pop.
You know
it's
what's,
also going to come out when Ubuntu comes out later.
Yeah.
So maybe we should wait on pop for the Ubuntu releases.
Something that's always new and always fresh is Tumbleweed. There's that.
There is, but see, I use it on everything, so it's not a very exciting. So this show I've decided is for my benefit, and so I like to learn something new. And if we're in Tumbleweed, then it's gonna be like, what do I think about this? Then I have to defend that, or sorry, well, you should have done this, and then
Yeah,
then how
it's
much
like doing soloists with Peter.
how much fun is that?
My friend, the real geek in Denmark, he's been doing some videos on OpenSUSE lately, and it's quite interesting. And he's talking about how you can even use OpenSUSE to do like an Arch install with using a graphical interface, and you get to the point where you can install whatever you like. And just yesterday, I think he was talking about OpenSUSE as well and the things you can do with it. So very interesting.
Yeah, you can customize literally every bit about your package selection, everything in OpenSUSE. You can make that thing as lean, and you can rip everything out of it if you want. Like there's a JEOS, which is just enough operating system to get it running.
Yeah.
And
I've already written the ISO. I'm ready to go.
But
so
and then
if you want to go somewhere veer left completely,
yes,
as somebody suggested in the comments and YouTube, we could try NixOS.
NixOS. I don't know that one.
That's a choice. That's a decision.
NixOS is based on itself. NixOS is independent. It's not based on Debian, Fedora, or OpenSUSE. You can use the package manager in other distros, and I think they somehow you can have multiple versions of packages because it has a different package manager than like any other distro, except like Geeks. I don't know how to say that. The other distro that's very similar. But
it sounds like
something
that could just come unraveling apart. Like if you mess with that too much. I guess they're all that way.
One unique thing about it that sets it apart is the way you install the applications. You have a little file. You list all your applications and it does everything for you.
That is interesting.
It's like making an Arch script.
Sorry, but they do have an installer though. GUI installer.
So the way I'm picking up right now is so we could do Garuda, Farron, or Nix between those three.
Garuda
I
sounds
just posted
awesome.
something in the chat, in the Zoom chat, that I was thinking I meant to send it to you earlier this week when I watched it. I think this distro is right up your alley, Nate.
Oh boy.
It's a lot.
Psych OS Linux, retro files,
it's
Dream, and system.
Yeah,
except for the
got a lot
system D
of,
free
like,
thing.
retro games in that.
I will do homework. I will watch that, and I will get back with you on that, Steve.
Not that I wanted to try. I thought, oh, Nate's gonna love this.
Funny, there's so many interesting things happening.
You know, we had never actually tried RetroPie. I don't know if we could actually do that as a distro review.
That'd be hard to do. Unless it has a pie. Jinda has
maybe,
2 pies.
I don't believe I've ever tried Garuda Linux.
It's
Myself.
only like 2 years old.
No, that's right. And it's had some very interesting reviews, which some people say it's just all dressed up and it's not much about it. And some people say it's awesome. So it goes from sort of, I've heard one extreme to the other with that distro, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
I think one of the
Zinky
big
and
things is the
Telegram
switching of
switched to
kernels that you
that.
can do.
right.
I'm sorry, there was a clash there.
No, I said there's I think like for gamers and that there's a switching of kernels that you can do. They have a modified kernel in there.
Low latency.
Oh, low latency. It's perfect. We should talk about that.
Where's Thomas?
So Garuda, I know, is based on Arch. It does ButterFS, and it has a very unique styling. I think that's what appeals to a lot of people.
Mm.
And there's a lot of versions too. So
There's a lot of versions. What, desktop versions?
yeah, there's I mean the KDE Dragon, I think, or Dragon 9064 or whatever it's called, is their flagship, but it comes in GNOME and several other desktop styles.
Well, personally,
So
I'm
what
kind
are
of
we
leaning
thinking?
toward Garuda personally, just because I there's a lot of talk about it in the chat.
Yeah, there's a lot of buzz about Garuda.
So
Yeah,
it
there
might be
been
fun.
quite a fair bit. Yeah, let's do Garuda then. And I actually
Garuda
heard that
Buzz.
I actually heard that it's actually pronounced Garude. Is this anyone? Can anyone confirm this? I don't know. It's somebody said a little while ago. I was watching a video. Somebody said it's actually not pronounced Garuda. It's pronounced Garude.
Garude the
But,
dude.
Yeah, I'm not
Oh,
sure
yeah.
if that's
Sounds
true
kinda
or not, or
rude.
whether.
Well, I think they wouldn't have that A there after the D if it's Garude.
Yeah, I know. Maybe somebody was
Yeah.
just messing around with that. I don't know.
I mean, maybe if they
somebody's
put like an
probably
OUX at the
It comes in KDE, XFCE, GNOME, LXQT, KWin, Wavefire, Qtile, BSPWM, IA3MW or WM, and Sway.
And Cinnamon.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to sway me in any way, to be
It
honest.
sounds like Arco.
Boom. Well, I think it's worth a shot. That's I'm gonna do the plasma because I like plasma. Unless maybe I should try something else. Maybe I'll try a couple of different desktop environments. See, I'll give it the old Dan Kelly treatment where you turned off paved road into a field and just gun it. So
They have a GUI for installing curated gaming software.
ooh.
Well,
That'll
actually,
be interesting.
speaking of plasma, this Windows 11, like Dan was saying, choosing your default applications, it only had like 4 of them in there. Is that normal for plasma, or is that something specific to Windows FX?
Plasma is whatever you want it to be. So I imagine it's a Windows FX specific.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough.
Can I just point out that I opened the Garuda website on my massive monitor, and it not a knock because like everything scales fine, but the fact that this eagle just blew up to like 1,000,000 times the normal size was a little scary.
That way you can be sure you're looking at the right
Oh,
website.
that's awesome. I bet you got one
Nice.
of those in your backyard.
Is there a flagship desktop to Garuda, or is it just pick whatever you
I
want?
think it's I think it's the KDE.
The KDE?
Yeah, KDE is the number one.
I've noticed KDE seems to be getting very popular lately, to be honest.
Yep.
I'm running it.
I like the fact that it's a dark theme with purple highlights. I already like it.
ButterFS is a default filing system for
Oh
this
yeah.
There we go.
with Z compression.
Welcome to the
ZRAM
future.
enabled by default. And they have a very worldly team.
See, I'm still on the EXT4 trail, to be honest. It's tried and true, but
Yeah, so am I. But
If it
they might
brings you
just
any
throw pipe
comfort,
wire in here too and call it a real update.
if it brings you any comfort, BTRFS has been stable for like 8-9 years now. So, and the instabilities or like big issues really have been with like RAID arrays. If you're using like RAID 5 and 6, not for like single volume stuff you would use in like a distro install. And by the way, on a technical level, BTRFS is actually based on the same principles that EXT4 is. It's actually a sort of progression of EXT4's concepts itself with these B trees. So BTRFS is really just
what
EXT4.
tools do you use to partition it?
The same. It's a native Linux file
Gparted
system.
will work with it just fine.
Gparted,
Yeah.
parted, fparted, GNOME disks, all of it. It's fully native.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to have
Oh,
you
yeah.
here, Shickle, because that they're the things that I don't know. It's not that I'm criticizing ButterFS in any way. It's just that I lack knowledge on ButterFS.
I mean, with
because I've
something as
been-
important as a file system, you kind of just got to go with what works. So
Well, doesn't
Yeah, but that's true.
ButterFS make it easier for backups or using like time shift and that?
Snapshots.
Because snapshots. Yeah.
Yeah.
anything from snapshots to compression to deduplication, as well as like error checking and like fixing
Preventing bit rot.
things.
Yep. It actually actively prevents bit rot or reduces bit rot anyway on your drive. So when you have large,
what's bit
massive,
rot?
when you have
what's
massive
that?
drives,
When your
and you
bits
have,
start rotting.
it's exactly that. So
It actually is.
yeah.
So I had bit rot, do I?
So it's actually something you experience as you age, and it's also something that drives experience as they age, where a bit can start to become a little bit faulty, like maybe it's kind of between a 0 and a 1.
They start
This is
turning
real.
green.
And they become unreadable, or the file system it can corrupt the file system. So by it actively
Right.
preventing bit rot, it does. I'm not exactly sure how it does it, but it does, like between moving things on the drive, like refreshes it from time to time, or other things. But yeah,
So it also has some, like if you want to do separate home, and does it work the same as EXT4? Whereas if you like to partition your disk, which is what I like to do, I like to choose my boot partition and home partition and all that. You can still do that with ButterFS.
Yes.
Yes, on multiple really cool levels though. So
Okay.
in terms of like your boot partition, that typically would stay the same file system format. You wouldn't put that to BTRFS because like the hardware has to be able to read it. But in regards to like your root partition, you can create 2 separate BTRFS partitions, one for root and one for home. Or you can actually just create one and have a sub volume. So you'll have, it's basically like, imagine if BTRFS itself wasn't the partition, but if it was like the layer over the partitions, you could have root and you could have /home, and they would be separate. But the good thing about them is that it wouldn't matter how big one or the other is. So they can actually move independently of each other. So if you fill up your root faster than you fill up your home, you don't have to repartition and move your home partition over and vice versa. You can shrink
That's
or
interesting.
increase them dynamically.
That's interesting.
Makes it a lot simpler.
the default installation, like a partitioning for Tumbleweed, is one partition with the subvolumes. I can't recall exactly how many subvolumes right now, but they have different the / different directories are subvolumes. And
And the great thing is, you say it. You know what I'm talking about.
well, it allows flexibility. So like if you have to grow your file system, you can move that subvolume to a different drive very easily. There's a ButterFS send feature. But what were you going to say? Because it might have been something else.
It was, but that's also a really good thing. It also allows, even though it's one partition, it allows each of these subvolumes to have their own characteristics as well. So different mount options, like if you want one to be compressed and want another one not to be compressed. You can even allow subvolumes to fail, which essentially means that, let's say if you have a subvolume that's just used for like game data or something like that, if something goes wrong, or let's say if that drive or whatever isn't present, like that subvolume isn't present, you can still allow the system to boot even if it's not. So that way you don't end up on like a black screen. You can just log in, figure out what's going on, and then fix it. So it's pretty cool.
I got one of them Samsung drives. It'd be just great for that.
So if ButterFS detects a problem, it will be read-only mode, right?
It depends on the problem. So like if there's an issue, it will protect itself and it can go into read-only mode, but it really does depend on what's wrong, because sometimes it's not severe enough, it'll just fix it.
I also want to add the caveat that ext4 is more performant than ButterFS.
Sometimes.
Just to keep that in mind.
It's not actually consistent. So it depends on what types of operations you do and whether you're talking about read or write performance, because they're actually, for most things, pretty similar. The only time performance regressions really come into play is with like large write operations that require, or like copy on write operations rather, that will cause like large chunks of data to be rewritten. But in a lot of instances, BTRFS is actually faster because it doesn't have to completely copy data if the data already exists. If you copy something from one place to another in ext4, it will physically recreate everything manually. Whereas with BTRFS, it uses the same data because the data is the same, and it only writes when the data actually changes.
Right, it's part of the deduplication.
BTRFS is, yeah. So BTRFS
So
is
it's just
actually
like
faster.
attaches a link to it for something.
Yeah.
Of sorts. So the other neat thing too is like, it's because of the deduplication, you end up using less drive space, especially if you're sloppy with how you store information. So now, like let's say you do a lot with like pictures, photographs, or maybe or other media files, and you put like maybe you download a bunch of stuff, whatever, and then because you're sloppy, you re-download it. It doesn't actually create more data on the drive. So what's interesting is I have this computer here, and which has got all ButterFS, and I have another computer that actually has a larger storage pool, but is XFS, and I have more space, like to the tune of about 150 more gigabytes of storage, even though it's the exact same data, but one is XFS, the other is ButterFS, and there's no compression. So it means I'm really sloppy or something. So regardless, it's pretty amazing. So Garuda Linux it is. And also I want to say I have a server that does, so the root, I just wanted to have like 6 drives in a RAID array at RAID 10 using ButterFS, but I had to bootstrap it with another drive. So basically all my data is on the RAID 10 array, and then the root is another ButterFS, but a second, basically just to bootstrap the whole thing. And it's a really great. I haven't had any failures yet, so I'm waiting for that. But when I do, I can very easily you have to change them out in pairs, but you can change out the drives, and then you can actually grow the array as well. So there's a lot of like really neat features of ButterFS. You could argue that ZFS is better, more robust. It does have more time, ripening, I guess. But I'm very happy with ButterFS at this point. So I haven't had any failures. Again, I've had failures with XFS, like for bad shutdowns, but I've never had any failures with bad shutdowns in ButterFS. So it appears to be a lot more durable in that regard.
Does anybody know when OpenSUSE switched to ButterFS and when Fedora switched?
OpenSUSE has been on ButterFS at least since 2014 or 15, I think.
Fedora did it like last year, I think.
Is that last year?
Okay, minimum requirements, 30 gigabytes storage space, 4 gigabytes of RAM, video card with OpenGL 3.3 or better, 64-bit filing system, or operating system, excuse me. And there you have it.
That's cool. So we're rapidly
We're
running out of
taking a
time.
deep dive.
But I wanted to bring up a thing that's kind of been on the internet here. So has anybody heard of LTT or Linus Tech Tips?
Yes, watch them all the time.
I used to watch him a lot. He got annoying.
So
He can do that.
He's I don't truthfully I don't just subscribe to him, but I do watch a lot of his stuff because, like, you know, not his general subject is, you know, although if you do the what was it called, the Venn diagram, so like how much of his circle and my circle, like there's a little bit of overlap but not a whole lot, but there's a few things, and actually that just recently shifted because have you heard the challenge that he's doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The Linux challenge. So I find it very interesting. So I watched more to listen because I was working as I was listening. But so he's talking about his Linux challenge where he's going to switch things to Linux. I don't know what distribution he's using, but I do know it's not OpenSUSE, and I do know that it is Plasma because OpenSUSE wasn't one of the options. But I know he's having some trouble with his hardware. And he wants to go at it from a perspective of, like, Joe user doesn't know what he's doing, like fresh. He's not going to use Anthony, who's his his Linux dude, which I do watch a lot more of his stuff than Linus stuff. So he's just not going to use that resource basically, which I think is a little bit silly because I think everybody has a nerdy friend resource. People ask me about Linux all the time. I am that nerdy friend. Also, I don't know if he's like getting if he's connecting with any communities out there, but like, I mean, if he connected with something like the Destination Linux community, they would obviously be very helpful, and anybody can access them. That's not like any special privilege, nor do I think people would bend over backwards because it's Linus Tech Tips, maybe. I don't know.
He should use an alias and go on the forums and do stuff like that. IRC or whatever he needs to do.
Well, I promise he's not going to watch the show. But anyway, maybe somebody will. So it'd be interesting if he actually took the time and did do that, because that would be the kind of help he'd get. Or on the forums of the distribution. I know that when I started in Linux, the Mandrake forums were great. The OpenSUSE forums were great. People were very helpful. I didn't get an RTFM at any point in time. Like, nobody ever did that. They were always great. So that's never been my experience. So I want to open up to the floor. I've already babbled quite a bit, but what are your thoughts on this? How do you think this is going to? Is this just an exciting bit of news for today, and then a month from now we're going to forget about it, or do you think this is going to affect? Because he's got a big channel. Is this going to affect Linux usage? How do you think it's going to affect Linux usage?
Depending on how he approaches it and how he uses it, he could have a big effect. I mean, it's what he's got. Huge millions of subscribers.
Yes,
he's taking a gamble on this Steam Deck that's coming out, is what he's doing, and that the Steam Deck is based on Arch Linux, and he wants to be somehow connected to that, because if he's connected to that, then he's connected to the Steam Deck, which is connected to popularity and everything that goes with it.
He has 14 million subscribers on his main channel, and he has multiple channels.
Yeah, so what he says on his channel is going to carry some weight.
For sure.
I guess he's already impressed with the Steam Deck from what I...
My first thoughts are to go and troll his YouTube video comments and just leave links to my YouTube channel.
Yeah. There's another idea. For the Steam Deck, there is another piece of news that came out on the Steam Deck. They actually put out a kind of right to repair video on the Steam Deck on how to take it apart and replace parts in it with caveats so that this may kill you and you should not do this, but they show you how to do it anyways.
Yep. Don't do this, but this is how you do it. Don't do this,
Yeah.
but this is how you do that. Yeah, it was a
I
good
got
video.
it.
I watched the reaction of Linus, and I think Luke was with him. I think in that they were like watching it. Maybe I could have the name wrong. So sorry.
It's
Sorry
Luke,
to whomever. Luke. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Luke and Linus.
it's Luke.
Yes.
All right. So they're watching it and like their opinions of it, and I felt like I was in agreement with pretty much everything they said with the right to repair, and I do think it'd be very cool if the Steam Deck had like pretty much you could buy any part you wanted, out of it. You could even buy all the parts independently and assemble it if you hated yourself, things like that. I think that'd be great because if they did something like that where they actually kept the parts available and open like that, that would be awesome for the Steam Deck. That'd be you'd set it so far apart from other consoles out there.
Yeah, Louis
Or computers.
Rossman should actually be using Linux.
He did use Linux. I think he was a Gentoo user, he said. I think it's not right that Linus is not using the user forums of the distros, whatever he's using. I think it's Manjaro. He should be using that. And he doesn't have to like say on Twitter, hey, can somebody help me? Because that's not correct either, because not everybody has the massive audience. Everybody's going to jump in and help him. But he should do an alias and try to contact the user forums and probably have a buddy. Usually when you have a buddy for Linux, it's a lot better. Doesn't have to ask everything, but just every now and then, I guess.
A Linux
Some
buddy,
questions.
kind of like a Thunder buddy for Stormy
He
Days.
does have an in-house Linux buddy.
But I don't think he's using them.
He's
He
not
won't
using
ask
them.
him anything.
Yep. Because
I
he
honestly
thinks it's
think
cheating.
Linus Tech Tips sort of goes in any direction that will get him views, to be honest.
That
how you
is
make
the
money.
truth.
Oh,
It's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like Steve. He does. It's kind of like Steve. Whatever he does to get the clicks.
I don't,
It all starts
mind
when you get
watching.
clickbait fever.
There's that one show with 4 people on it, that destination wherever, begging him, come to us. We can tell you the right journey. It's not the destination, it's how you get there. Oh, no.
I'm not on that show. I don't know what you're talking about. Like Destinations, like is it Solaris, something like that? I don't remember.
Yeah,
So I think that Luke also is using Linux Mint, but he has used Linux in the past, just not as a full-time OS.
Right, for school and whatnot. He's used it. So I'm sure they have very bespoke hardware that they use on a regular basis, like professional level hardware that may not have the support for Linux. So that's going to be a challenge. Like when I choose hardware, I'm like, will this run on Linux? And I see if it will before I purchase it, or I try and get some kind of a feel for it. But sometimes I've been burned. I purchased things that didn't work quite right. But whatever. eBay, it was like $10, whatever. I'm not a pro.
maybe somebody needs to make a parts picker website for Linux.
A Linux parts picker.
A Linux parts picker. Wouldn't that be pretty awesome?
That'd be pretty cool. Why don't you start that site there, Colin? It's probably more up your alley.
Nah, probably not.
Maybe Shickle. Shickle's got more new hardware. I got most of my hardware's a little bit older, minus my Commodore 64 imposter bread bin here. That's got AM. So, well, cool. Good deal. I'm gonna be watching this Linus Tech Tips. I'm probably gonna have to go ahead and subscribe to it just so I can stay on top of it because I really want to watch this. I'm very interested in seeing how this rather eccentric technology enthusiast handles his experience in Linux. So
I think they said they're going to have multiple videos. And
yeah, it's like 5 parts, I think.
At least 2, I think. I don't remember if they said 5 parts. But I do remember that the straw point that they had, the straw poll that they had for the picking the distro, the main 2 distros that were on top were Gentoo and Arch from the chat.
Trolls. That's why.
Saboteurs.
Yeah. In one of the live stream I was watching or listening to yesterday, they were talking like someone like he got a lot of like Linux. They must be Arch users that were basically saying, if you're having problems, RTFM, and also like he's having trouble with GitHub, using GitHub, whatever, and how like file extensions don't necessarily mean what the file extension is in Linux, which is true because it looks at some other bit of information, not
Yeah,
just
I've
the file
seen
extension.
some of that.
Yeah. So, regardless, it's gonna be very interesting, and I'm interested in seeing what comes of it. If you stay, my guess is he's not going to stay on Linux, but I hope that the information that he contributes helps developers. So no matter what comes from it, that people are interested in, making the experience better for the new user, which I think is what he's going for. So.
Yeah, I hope he really does decide to use Linux and stick with it and not go home and be a closet Windows user.
I doubt whether it'd be pretty hard for him to be a closet Windows user on his channel, I'm pretty sure. But I'm subscribed to Linus Tech Tips. I don't watch him much. The episodes that I like to watch is where they go out, and I can't remember the name of the episodes now. They go out and they build. They've got a certain budget to build a computer and that. What's it called?
Something, Computer Wars or something like that.
Yeah,
Distro Wars.
Not Distro Wars.
Something like trash or like salvage or something. I forget what it's called.
Something like
Yeah,
that.
they got a really
Scrap
small
Wars.
budget.
There we
They
go.
got Scrap Wars.
Scrap Wars. That's the one,
Scrapyard
yeah.
Wars. Scrapyard Wars.
Scrapyard Wars. They're very good they're good ones to watch. But I am subscribed to him, but I didn't really take a lot of notice of what he was doing lately. So yeah, I might have to check that out.
We all got very excited about garbage for a moment there. That was pretty great.
Yeah.
I mean, that's most of the stuff that I have is garbage. So yeah, I get pretty excited about it.
Well, he attracts the biggest crowd of the Windows gamers crowd. And that's the crowd he fits into, is people that use Windows and people that games, and frame rates and all that other stuff are, what they're interested in.
Yeah. I guess apparently there's some benchmarks. I think what's the impetus behind this is some benchmarks in gaming on Windows 11.
Mm-hmm.
Like it cut like frame rates by something like 5 to 10% or something like that. So that's the issue.
Jay's 2 cents does the same thing.
I'm sure that they're going to clean that up beforehand. So I don't think that's. I can't see Microsoft just releasing. Microsoft would never release buggy software. That's ridiculous. They would never do that. So don't be ridiculous. So, all right. Well, it's about that time. We should probably go around the horn and say our last word, or whatever. So, Eris, last word.
Thank you to everybody for showing up. Nate for hosting, Eric for the Zoom, and also I wanted to thank Eric for updating the Telegram stickers, the distro stickers. I bugged them and he updated some of the stickers. He added LFS and NixOS, and I forgot what other ones that I asked him to. So thanks.
Oh, cool. I have to check those out. Well, thank you, Eris, for being here. I appreciate your contributions. You're probably one of the more adults in the room, I think. So nice to have you. Colin, last word.
Yes, thanks, Nate, for putting this on. It's always a pleasure to come here for me on a Sunday morning anyway. Looking forward to trying Garuda Linux to see what the hype is all about. So we'll see what's going on there. Everybody have a great week, and shall see you next week.
Well, thank you very much, Colin, for being here. You are the thunder from down under, so it's nice to have someone who really digs into the distributions and makes videos on it and everything else. So make sure you share your video in the chat too. So your video, your YouTube channel. So thanks for being here. Jinda, glad you arrived this week. We missed you last week.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. You know how life kicks over.
Yes,
But
I do know how that goes.
I'd like to thank everybody for putting up with me again as usual. Can't wait to try the new distro that's coming out. And most personally, I want to learn how to pronounce it first.
Yeah, so Mitchell in the chat did say that in some languages the A is silent when it comes at the end. So So it's maybe it is Garuda Linux. So I don't know. Somebody will let us know for sure. I'm sure.
That's what I've heard.
Whenever they fix GNOME.
GNOME. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here, Jinda, and hope that you're able to join us again next week. Dan, last word.
Thank you for taking an evening out of your week so you could spend it with us and all the people in the chat, and we could have a Linux night out of the week. And Eric Adams is still letting you use his Zoom, I presume.
He is, because I'm too cheap to buy it.
Okay, thank him as well for lending it to you so we can do this. And I'm looking forward to trying the Garuda special this week. And with that said, it's been a great week.
Well, thanks, Dan, for being here. I appreciate you write all your notes down on some paper,
Yeah, I can't remember all this junk when I stumble across it, and
Right,
some of
yeah,
it
makes
could
sense.
be some of the most minuscule thing, but it's really important to somebody.
I mean, I use screenshots, but do whatever works best for you, bud.
It's like I did this, so I write it down.
Yeah, that's cool though. Well, thanks for being here. Shickle.
Hi, how's it going?
Great.
That was good to hear. Well, thanks for having. Oh, wow, voice crack. All right. Thanks for having me. It's always good to be here. Making embarrassing myself. It's cool. But yeah, no, I'm excited for it. I mean, Garuda's pretty neat because it's got really pretty icons and it's all neon and fun. I think the Firefox logo, the new one, by the way, would fit really well in there. So I can't wait to install Firefox or use it if it's not installed. I don't know. But yeah, I'm excited. And also KDE. That's pretty fun. I'm thrilled.
Cool. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, glad you could make it. And I know that you made a special effort to come here so you could be part of the show today. So thank you for that. Steve, last word.
Hey, thanks, Nate, for our virtual lug. You KDE lovers will love that Garuda has 3 KDE editions.
Wow.
KDE Dragonized,
Yeah,
KDE
I've
Gaming,
seen that.
and Dragonized Black Arch.
Well, golly. That sounds like it's
So
going to
lots
take
of
me.
fun and that. And if anybody's up in the next 9 hours, come stop by. And then check out why Linux for Everyone has just gotten really good. The guy behind the red curtains there. So
Oh. Well, how come you didn't plug that earlier? Do you have something you want to share?
he never
Oh,
talks.
yeah.
So
You're supposed
yeah,
to.
no,
You're supposed to plug these things.
I'm really humble. That's what it is. But yeah, no. So the new Linux for Everyone podcast, new format. It's 3 of us. It's good old Jason, Jeremy, and I are going to be hosting it. We're going to be the 3 regular hosts, and yeah, it's something that we've been kind of just working out, and we've already started recording, and I'm excited to get that out to everybody. So yeah, it's going to be really good. We got good stuff planned.
Is it the same the same feed as the show was previously, or is it a new show?
Yes, same feed.
Okay, just a format change. Awesome. Well, you should probably share a link with that in the chat as well, so everyone can share the love. There's no reason to not. And this is if someone's interested, definitely put it in their podcatcher, whatever it may be. Spotify on WindowsFX, whatever it might be. All right, so I want to thank everyone for joining both in the Zoom meeting and in the YouTube streams. Rocco for starting to build a community. Eric, once again, for the use of his YouTube account. For his Zoom account. And everyone involved in making Linux and open source tools possible. And also, for any more on me, you can go to cubiclenate.com. Links, regular written blatherings and whatnot can be found there, although it's been pretty light lately because of life stuff. And I want to thank everyone involved in making Linux possible and all the open source tools, because Linux truly puts personal back in a personal computer. So until next time, see yas.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Take care.